Welcome everybody to our first of many shows coming up on transformation stories. I am super excited to introduce you all to my first guest here today, which is, many of you already know this amazing, inspiring leader, Seema Kasan-Bulsara, who is a successful professional working in the corporate world. She has a passion working in the DE&I segment, making a difference to others just comes naturally to her. Simultaneously, as if that isn't a great shining resume already, she is a performance coach. She has coached in both health and relationship programs under a platform FITBANKER. She has been a trek leader with FITBANKER, taken people across multiple treks in England and Wales. And I am thrilled to have this leader, this inspiration, this catalyst, this soul sister on the show today. Seema, a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be one of the first to kick this off.
Love it. And why do I have Seema on today is because we just have something extraordinary about the leaders that we have lined up in this Transformation Stories show that is unfolding and coming over this month. Is there are people out there like you and I who seem to have life so sorted and so sussed, and yet we fight our own internal battles. And in a conversation very recently, Seema, you said that life up until very recently, I want to say that just prior to the last 3 or 4 years, while the world saw this woman thriving in her professional world, in the corporate world, confidence for you was as soggy as a noodle. And that really, while we can laugh about it, it struck a chord because that truly was my first 20 years of existence, right? I had lived across 4 continents, and that way of being followed me everywhere. It was like a shadow. And the world saw this really confident Ambika, but I most certainly didn't relate to myself that way. And to hear you say that echoed loudly, I could relate to it. And then the other aspect, that something else that you shared, which was you'd rather hide under a rock than raise your hand in conversations that would come up. And so I really want to kick off today's heart to heart with just asking you to tease those segments out, that part of Seema that nobody got to see, that wasn't on the resume. Life before you started unpacking, unfolding, and shedding all that didn't serve you.
Yeah, sure. So like, as you mentioned, life, work was thriving, social life was thriving. And yet there was a part of me just that didn't feel confident, was very unhappy, because I was the one that couldn't speak up. Even in meetings, it would depend on who was in the room. But if I was in a room full of executives, I'd want to shy away. I wouldn't want to hear my voice. I wouldn't want to put my idea forward. Instead, I'd do it via an email where I didn't have to necessarily use my voice or stand up in front of a group of people. And then I started, and it's a horrible feeling, because I knew deep down inside that I was more than capable of coming up with the good ideas. I was more than capable of doing whatever was asked of me, but yet there's a part of me that just did not have the confidence to speak up. And then I started to do my personal development journey, and I really got that I was just managing my existence in that way because it suited me, but not actually really get into the crux of why I chose to live my life that way. And I actually recall a moment when I was out with you and Ronnie, and we were at a talk, and it was a group discussion in front of a lot of other people, and everyone was putting their hands up, and there I was. I finally, plucked up the courage to actually say something. There was probably about 20, 30 people in that room. And I plucked up the courage to say something. And then Ronnie turns around and says, "We can't hear you. Can you speak up?" And at that moment, I just wanted the ground to open up and suck me in. And it was horrible. And I was like, I am never going to put my hand up again to speak up in one of these things. And yet I was on this journey to become like, you know, to become not a better person, but to come, you know, to come overcome these sort of hurdles. And yet here I was in a position where I was just like, no, I'm never going to do that again. And then through my personal development journey with an organization, they knew that I would never put my hand up to go on the stage or to, you know, like participate in front of a whole heap of people. So it was very easy for me just to kind of stay in the background, but obviously it's not how it works. So they kept trying to get me to come up on the stage. And I recall one evening, I was reading some intentions of the program, and I was the second person in line. There was a few of us that were up on the stage, and we were going to all read a line each or an intention each. And I was second in line. I thought, you know what, if I go to the end, that would have been, you know, it's all strategic, right? Normally I would go to the end because I just think, it's at the end. But I was like, no, I'm going to lose my nerve. I'm going to go towards the front. So I was second in line. And I thought, yeah, just quickly read it and I'll be off. And it was I was up there for 20 minutes because the leader was making me reread it, regenerate it. And like, I honestly thought, like, the ground, just please, just like, and in the end, the sensations I was feeling, they were horrible. I had butterflies. I was like sweating. I was just like, I was panicky. I wanted to cry. I was just like, what the hell am I doing here? And I actually wanted to walk off. I was just like, but I could see everyone's faces in the crowd, and they were like, I could see them almost like feeling my pain for me. So that's how I got through that particular episode. And then come FITBANKER, you know, like I started to do a lot of I started off doing the health program, and I lost quite a bit of weight, and that boosted my confidence in some ways. And yet I still would not put my hand up because I just recall that whole incident with Ronnie, and I was like, I am not going through that again, right? And then I just really, I don't know, something clicked somewhere that, you know what, I am not, there's a side of me that is not being heard, right? Or that's how I was perceiving it, that I'm not heard. Obviously I'm not heard because I never say anything. And that's when I started to really use the, you know, FITBANKER as my platform to really get myself out there. And it started off through through coaching, then facilitating the book club. And that was the book club was so uncomfortable, like really uncomfortable for me. And the fact that I was surrounded through that coaching, through the book club, I was surrounded by giants, what I called giants in my mind. And I just felt like such an imposter. I felt like I shouldn't be here, right? And I felt like I'm just, you know, like, what am I doing here? This isn't me. And the more I kept putting myself into those situations, those painful situations, the more I got stronger, the more I became resilient. And then the HR program started to really unpick some of the reasons why I was feeling the way I was feeling.
Amazing. There's so much you said in there that I want to capture and tease out. And I'm so conscious we have a finite time, but there's one thing I want to say. So HR, for those of you that are not familiar with it, is the Healthy Relationships program that we run. And Seema, there's something you said there that you took on, like you chose to take on new accountabilities. Yet in those accountabilities, there was such discomfort and fear.
Yeah.
Which almost everybody listening can relate to, which is, sure, we either won't put our hand up, which you also have experienced and shared, which is, I'm not gonna put my hand up again because, hey, what if they ask me to be louder or be any other way that's so uncomfortable to your natural state, right? Or the state you've always operated from. I don't want to say natural state, the state you've always operated from. Number two, or we will throw our hat over the wall. And it's so uncomfortable because it's not that we can't do it, but we have that imposter syndrome, which, if you're not familiar with the term, I'm sure you're familiar with the experience, is simply the viewers, that sense of I'm not good enough to be here, even though everything on your resume, your life experiences, and everybody that knows you knows for a fact that you're more than capable of engaging in that accountability. And so, Seema, you said the staying there, the consistency, the showing up, the not quitting, the carrying on with accountability, the structure, and the just accountability had you get stronger and stronger over time, which is extraordinary. I want to get into something you said right at the end of the last 10 seconds, which is when you got on the Healthy Relationships program, you found out what it is, the nuances that would hold you back in life in spite of accomplishing all that you did. There were still some shackles there. Could you get into that?
I can. So it was it's when we started doing work around inner child or the toddler brain. And at first, I was like, there's nothing wrong with me, you know, like what is all this toddler brain, blah, blah, blah. And then I kind of saw for myself, well, yeah, you know, like I don't speak up, I'm not heard. So I just kind of stuck with that. And as I started to do more programs with Healthy Relationships, so initially I was there as a participant, and then I started to coach. And it's in that moment that I started to really, really unpick it. And I recall the first time I participated in the program, you had done this meditation, and it took me back to my child of 8 years old. And I don't cry very easily. I'm not I'm not an emotional person. And that's just the way I am, right? I've become quite resilient, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at that moment when you went through that whole meeting that 8-year-old child, I just recall that I could not stop crying. And it wasn't just crying in that moment. I couldn't stop crying for days, because it's all I kept seeing was this 8-year-old child. And then I obviously reached out to you and I said, Ambika, I'm really struggling. I don't know what's going on. I cannot stop crying. And then, you know, we unpicked it. And there was an element of like, the reason I couldn't stop crying was because I felt like I had let down that child, that 8-year-old child. And since then, I can go back to that 8-year-old child, and I can give that 8-year-old child the biggest hug and tell her that life is going to be fine. And quite often, like now, what I see is this 8-year-old child. And look, I had a fantastic upbringing. My parents were the most amazing parents. I had the most amazing siblings, right? But there is a point in your childhood where you do make up your mind about certain situations, and they're not true at all, but that's just how our toddler brain works. And what I've kind of discovering for myself is that I used to quite often, so I'm the youngest, and my brother is middle. He's the only son. He used to get loads of attention. He could do nothing wrong in the eyes of my mum and dad. So I remember as a child when we used to play, it was school holidays, we're playing, as kids do, you know, like he'd like, I don't know, hit me, or in those days it was allowed, right? And we were just playing, or I'd get myself hurt, and then I'd go crying to my mum, and my mum would say, it was you provoked him, right? So he could absolutely do nothing wrong. So in that moment, I recall that I used to go up to my bedroom and I used to stare out the window, and I used to cry, and I used to think there's got to be a better life out there for me. That, you know, I cannot wait to get married, and this Prince Charming is going to come and take me away from this horrible situation where no one loves me. No, you know, like I'm not heard. No one loves me, and I, you know, like I'm not good enough. So there was all of that going on, and I really see it so clearly now that I can actually laugh about it. And then obviously I carry that into my adult life. And I really got recently, it's a question that you asked me as well, and it got me thinking, is like, so work has been extremely busy, and I absolutely do love my work, right? But it's been so stressful. And one of the questions you asked me is why am I doing it, right? Is there an element of you're trying to prove something? And I'm like, hell no, like, you know, what's there to prove? And I really recently just saw that 8-year-old child again in me, and it's like, yeah, I'll show them, right? And there was this element of my father used to always talk about my brother with so much pride, and yeah, I never heard him say anything like that about me. And I was fine with that growing up, because my brother was amazing, and yeah, you know, like he was the only son, and it was just that generation I grew up in. And it's not to say that my dad didn't love me, but I recall going back to university as a mature student, just because I wanted my dad to say, I'm proud of you. And I went back to university. I had a full-time job, right? I was working full-time. I gave up all my social life because weekends, evenings were full of me studying. I went and got my degree, and I could see my dad when I used to come back home from after sitting my exams. I could see my dad pacing up and down, you know, like he'd come out the house to check if I'm walking down the road, or, you know, I could see all of that, right? And then the moment I stepped in the house, he'd like act all calm and like as if like he was just watching his TV program and stuff like that. And then he casually asked me, how did it go? And I knew when I started to get all the results in, they were coming in with flying colors, right? I was acing it. And that look of pride on his face, it was unbelievable, right? And I just thought, you know what, wait until I graduate. I'm going to hear those words. They're finally going to be said to me that, you know what, Seema, I'm so proud of you. And then he passed away just before I was about to graduate, and I've carried that for a long time inside of me. And so obviously I go on and I'm constantly taking on more and more and more. And I know there's an element of FOMO there for me, fear of missing out. But it's like, why have I got this fear? And I just really got very clear quite recently that this is why. It's because I'm still proving to my dad, who's not even here, that I am worthy of, you know, being worthy of him being proud of me. Yet I know that he is.
So not only is he and your mom and your siblings, and not only are they extremely proud of you, Seema, but so is every other person that connects with you. And what Seema just shared here so vulnerably to everybody listening in, and it takes tremendous amount of courage. So I just want to acknowledge you, Seema, for sharing that over here, and thank you for that, because it most certainly will be a value to everybody that listens in, is that we truly follow a path at times with such blindfolds or with tunnel vision on to just go and accomplish that one goal and another goal and another goal and another goal, because we think it's just the norm, but it's not the norm. It's inside of a society where we're only a somebody, we're only accomplished, we've only made it if we've hit those goals. For some, it may be becoming partner of your firm. For some, it may be getting married. For some, it may be having kids. For some, it may be having a certain body. For some, it may be a certain bank balance. For some, it may be a business, a venture, an empire. But it's not now. It's anything other than now. And that pursuit, that race of tomorrow when I'll be better, then they'll be proud, then I'll feel better, then they'll be happy, then I'll be a somebody. That toxic inner cycle has nothing to do with what a parent said or didn't say, and everything to do with our perception of ourselves. And when the relationship to self is fractured because we're operating from that 8-year-old self, as Seema flagged to everybody, then you can climb mountain after mountain, get title after title, win, have the most glamorous, amazing, loving, harmonious relationship, and not be able to enjoy any of it because you're caught in a future that doesn't exist, coming from a past where you're stuck. And so, Seema, I love that you just got so present to that. I love that you got to identify that the 8-year-old shows up in so many rooms, which is why you've got all the amazing titles and accomplishments on your resume. And yet there's a sense of, I'm not there yet because I haven't heard those words in your case. And for somebody else, it'll be some other version of it. So from there, from one more and accomplishing it all, adding more to your plate and filling your plate so full that your body communicates and you have symptoms showing up. I want to get into the laughter segment. So you identified, you had the breakthroughs, you got, hang on, the source of it is not that I have nothing else to do and therefore I'm filling my plate. The source of it is that real unhealed childhood wound. And to Seema's point, which she said earlier, guys, I really want to clarify, childhood wounds don't mean you have a messed up childhood or bad parents or horrible upbringing. We could have everything perfect by the book, but the young mind interprets things the way it does. You could have two siblings, one gets a yellow toy and a blue toy is given to another, and one is left thinking, why didn't I get that? Differences show up in so many ways that we cannot understand as an adult, but a child sees them, experiences them, feels them. And fundamentally, the fractures happen under the age of 7 when we're left thinking, I'm not worthy, I don't belong, and I'm not loved. Those become our truth, and we go on to create identities. And in our program, we really unpack those narratives which aren't true, really get you to transform your perception of your entire life up until this point, and then create a new you with a higher consciousness in this moment. Not who will you be in the future. In this moment, you get to elevate your consciousness. So Seema, with that elevated consciousness, with all the inner work you did, with being the transformational space, how did laughter come into existence? How did becoming a laughter yoga practitioner come into existence?
So,
why that laugh?
Okay, so on the program we do look at dharma, or your ikigai, and funny enough, through my whole FITBANKER journey, we talk about the greater why. And I used to, again, I was like, I don't have a greater why, and therefore I felt there was something missing. But through the program, we do, and I've done interviews like these in the past, but we do a set of interviews where we ask friends and family, people that know us, like what is it that you would say that I'm good at, or where do I shine the most? Not good at, but where do I shine the most? And all the interviews that came back were kind of said that I'm really fun to be with, and I'm really sociable, and they, like I'm funny, and I was like, great, that's really great. But when you're looking at ikigai, it's like you're looking at how can you be of service to someone, like what is it that you're good at, and how can you be of service to others through that, and can you make a living out of it? And I was like, yeah, that's really great, thanks guys, but there's no chance I'm going to be able to make a living out of that, right? And but the intention was there, right? And I kept asking myself, okay, what is it I can do where I am of service to someone, and where I can help others, where I can make a difference. So the question was still, the inquiry was still there. And then I had a little bit of a breakup in my relationship, and I was, at that time, I had done so much work on myself that I really did not want to go downhill with, my emotions, etc. So I was like, what is it? What can I do? What can I do? And then it just appeared that, what, laughter is such a great tool, because it could change your emotional mind. It changes you physiologically. It's such a powerful tool. And then I started to I first got qualified as a laughter therapist. I then went on to become get my laughter yoga leader certification. And what I really found through laughter was it is such a powerful tool, right? Because you get to really be you know, like absolutely be your childish self and not give a worry about what anyone else thinks about, right? Because you just let yourself go in that moment, and you just let out that inner child, let her play, let her have some fun, you know, like it's magical. And at the same time, what you're doing is you're pumping hormone, you know, the happy hormones, you're enhancing your mood, your emotional state. You know, it's a cardiovascular workout. There's just, I mean, the list is endless of how many benefits you can get out of laughter. And I started practicing it, and I really saw the difference it made for myself. It's a confidence booster. And then I started going out to others with it, and the feedback I got was amazing. Like, people were reporting that they felt energized. I had someone say that they were nervous about going into a meeting, but after doing laughter yoga, they went in there confidently, they went in there like energetically, fresh-minded, full of ideas, and they had a most successful meeting. And then there was this call, like, can you do more of these sessions? Can you please like do some more? So that's kind of where I got the laughter.
Oh, I love it. So Seema has done laughter yoga sessions in the middle of treks, taken 40 plus people up mountains, on trails, at corporate spaces. And now she's actually bringing an event online to anybody across the globe. So your geographical location does not stop you from having access to this extraordinary technique of healing. And her event is this Sunday. And we will put the link for you to register to this event in the comments of this live video, so you have access to it. There are limited tickets. Go grab your ticket right away and really just get on. As a family, to laugh together is one of the greatest gifts you can create for yourselves. And I know I've grown up in a household where my mom and dad were just the source of a lot of jokes and a lot of laughter. And that still continues. And often my husband will say, you guys don't even need a conversation to laugh because you're constantly just laughing, but it keeps harmony and love and just dissipate close to heart, and just dissipates negative energy so effortlessly. So get on. And particularly if there is more persistent stress than joy in your environments, in your dynamics with yourself, with others, come along and bring others along as well. And on that note, we are going to wrap up. Seema, so I love that you created your Ikigai. I love how you discovered your purpose, and really are getting to leverage laughter as a tool for healing and making a difference to communities. I do want to just ask you one question, which is, who are you for humanity? And why must people show up for themselves in addition to what I've just created?
I am for humanity, just love, joy, happiness, because I want to create a ripple of, I want to cause a ripple of happiness and joy in the world. Because when I can create that, and I've seen it for myself, when I can create that next person brings joy and happiness to another, and then there's a ripple effect, and that's what I'm out to cause in the world.
I love it. And there's something I've noticed being in the personal development space for the past decade, which is people mistake niceness and kindness almost at times seem interchangeable, where people are more accustomed to being nice and polite than actually being kind. And just being nice all the time, guys, doesn't mean that you're actually making a difference to another. Often it comes from a compensatory mechanism, which is the fear of not belonging. So we will do whatever it takes to conform and fit in. And the work we do in this world of transformation is, how do you get to show up and truly, genuinely, authentically be kind to another human being so that they become a better version of themselves, and so on and so forth, collectively, at a human being, at a family, at a national, global level. People are operating at a higher energy where collaborations are the focus over competition. And so, Seema, I want to firstly wish you all the best for the event this Sunday. I hope you have people from around the world. I love what you stand for. And to everybody listening in, who can relate to Seema's journey, which is you've got all these titles and all these accomplishments, and yet your confidence is as soggy as a noodle, or there's an imposter syndrome in every room you show up in, or you'd rather just stay quiet than share your genius ideas. Get on our upcoming Healthy Relationships program. I spent 30 years of my life living everything Seema has shared and much more. And my commitment is we don't live such a paralyzed existence. We literally get to shed all that is in us, layers and layers and layers of memories, of imprinting, of conformity, and allow the authentic you, the one you're born to be, to surface so that you unleash your unlimited potential. You de-escalate anxiety and everyday agitations. You get to really proactively create new brain patterns that give you access to empowering and overcoming your everyday typical barriers, situations, your relationship to self and to others. How do you bring peace in your everyday household? Of course, you have events like Seema's. And how do you do it when those events aren't happening on a given basis? If you do forget those tools, and my intention is, as Seema, there is a question, by the way, from the audience, which is, when are these events going to happen? How do they have access to your laughter tools? So I'd love for you to answer that in the chat box as well, which is live on my profile, please. But guys, if you're looking to elevate your everyday simple experience of joy, then get on our upcoming Healthy Relationships program. And Seema is one of the coaches on that program. And so if you want to have more laughter and joy in your life after you attend her session this Sunday, then it's a no-brainer for you to be on this 10-week journey with her. We have weekly webinars and a weekly coaching call with designated coaches. There'll be Seema and other coaches. I lead the webinars. So let's get together and cause a storm. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you so much, Seema, for getting on tonight. Big hugs, and here's to laughter and joy becoming viral across the world.
Perfect.
Thank you all.